Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Artificial Future podcast, which is weekly. It started impromptu, and it's morphed into something much more than that, where we gather information every week about the most current developments in artificial intelligence, how it affects you, will robots take over the world, all of the major concerns that go with it. I'm Pete Gruber, and thank you for joining us. Any of you that have questions, feel free to ask them. Let us know where you're coming in from. And we're streaming on a number of different platforms, so don't be shy. Let's debate. Let's talk about this. Let's discuss this topic. So one of the first things I wanted to share with you, this was an interesting article. It starts off like this. It's funny, the bots I create are so powerful, people still don't realize they're talking to a bot. Now, this is someone that is talking on Reddit. He said, I set this one up to reply to new posts within a subreddit community. Every time someone posts something new, the bot will analyze it and automatically create a post reply. So here's what somebody posted, and then you'll see the reply here in a second. He says, in this holiday season, how many messages you received do you think were generated by artificial intelligence? And the response was, ha ha, I feel for you. I got a mix for sure, but I'm betting at least a couple were AI crafted. End of the day, it's the thought that counts, right? Whether it's a keyboard smashing human or clever code, hope the good vibes came through. That response was AI generated. That was a large language model posing like a human. And we'll go into that a little bit further when we talk about image creation now. And the background, by the way, is for a later topic, which is that a suspicion that we may be living in a simulated reality. And I asked Bard and ChatGPT, ChatGPT 4 and Midjourney to give me an image that epitomizes that concept of living in an alternative reality. And this is what it came up with.
This is a pretty good one.
Yeah, I thought so too. So we'll cover that here. So an article from Insider Tech, which is saying that sales professionals are saving 2 hours and 15 minutes each day by using AI tools to automate manual tasks. They say that AI is saving sales professionals more than 2 hours of work each day, and that U.S. sales pros are using AI tools like ChatGPT to help make content and do outreach. And you know, that resonates with us. Just before the podcast here, we were theorizing another type of video interview using, again, ChatGPT 4 to flush out some interview questions that may not have been asked before. And this is the type of thing that AI really shines with. It looks like we've got SJV Tesla chiming in. He's giving us a muscular arm, which is an emoji for I like it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today. That's SJV. That's in one.
So a new study reveals that we can no longer tell AI-generated faces from real human faces. Now, you have to
San
admit,
Joaquin Valley. Yeah. Sorry.
San Joaquin Valley?
Yeah.
Okay. Think a year ago, any faces that were AI-generated look cartoonish. They, they look like the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty two-dimensional and not very realistic. Well, they say that the faces people rate as most human-like now are actually AI-generated. No real people. So there's a website called, and we've talked about this before, but it goes on in this article, expands it a bit. There's a website called This Person Does Not Exist, where you can see an AI-generated photo of people who have never lived. Now, this is highly useful to people that have taken over Facebook accounts, for example, or that are creating fake accounts.
I'm pulling it up.
Perfect. Okay, there we go. So that's a guy that has never existed. Amazing.
I'm trying to look at this.
He looks very human, doesn't he? Even got some blemishes, some zits. You know,
I don't think there's anything that gives it away, really.
he's got 1 or 2 day growth. The hair is kind of imperfect. But anyway, what they say is, for so long, computer-generated faces have been walking the uncanny valley, as they call it, which means it's detectable. They look passably human, but not quite right. AI faces are wrong in a way that we cannot often spell out. Just a few months ago, I was looking at some of these types of images, and, you know, you can tell by the eyes. They're just not as detailed, or they're too perfect, or, you know, something just wasn't right. Now, there we go. You got another one. That looks pretty damn convincing.
That's
Bags
pretty,
under the eyes.
that's pretty real.
Yeah, that looks like Aunt Georgia, doesn't it? Amazing. Yeah, and it keeps on going. There's even a kid in there. Look at that.
I mean, that looks just
Indistinguishable. That would be my choice of words. So they talk about a paper that was published recently in Psychological Science that the ability to recognize AI faces is all over now. And this website, of course, this person does not exist. I recommend you check it out. It's pretty cool. Where you can see AI-generated photos of people who have never lived. Their faces are as textured and complex as any real face. Their portrait tells the story of a life, but behind the picture, there is no life.
look at this, Pete. I just did this one, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna change it. I'll change it to female. We'll make 35 to 50 years old.
Oh my God, you can dial
Black.
in your parameters.
Refresh. Yeah, and then it just counts down from 3, and it just generates a
Amazing. That could be his mother then, right?
new image. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So behind the picture, they say there is no life. The nose has never smelled wood smoke. Their lips have never been kissed. Their wrinkles marking their faces are not time earned, and those eyes betray no wisdom, or soul in this case. Their face is a simulacrum, an imitation of existence. So I had to look up this word, simulacrum. SIMULACRUM. The closest definition of that, to get your head around this, is a caricature. When an artist produces a line drawing that closely approximates the facial features of a real person, the subject of a sketch cannot easily be identified by a random observer. It can be taken for a likeness of that individual. Well, we've gone beyond that, apparently, with AI-generated images at this point. The problem, they say, as French philosopher Jean Baudrillard understood, is that over time, a simulacrum may replace the reality it supposedly represents. So too with AI faces. We know these people do not exist only because they occupy a website called "This Person Does Not Exist." If their faces appeared as Facebook profiles, Tinder messages, or sports journalists, we'd be none the wiser. Now, brace yourselves, because this is also getting into videos now. We're going to have the same level of perfection in video, talking heads, basically, that are going to be as convincing as these pictures that we're seeing.
And you see Neill's comment up there.
Niels, thanks for joining us. I have not seen it. No, he says, maybe it's more correct to say that the generated faces are mixtures of many faces in the training set. Mm-hmm. Just like we are chimeras of all our parents.
Chimeras, yeah. I don't like the idea of being thought of that way, but it's true. Yeah, we're just, mixes. So I wonder in the training data, though, if AI, when it's generating a face, is it plucking out the eyes of somebody and putting that on the image, or is it still generating it pixel by pixel on its own, kind of imitating that, or if it's actually just using elements from other images?
And I wonder if the coders are actually able to distinguish that in code and have those instructions visible.
Yeah.
Or has AI actually started to do its own thing, basically? That would be fascinating. So they say that for so long, computer-generated faces have been walking the uncanny valley. They look passably human, but not quite right. Millions of years of evolution have trained us to recognize the unnatural and the deviant. AI faces are wrong in a way that we cannot often spell out. So this is according to a paper published recently, Psychological Science, and their claim is that AI has taken over the creation of faces at this point. They talk about dubious eyes now. It's been known for a while that AI-generated faces are often interpreted as more human-like than actual human faces. What interested Miller was that this is not true across all types of faces. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Notably, white AI-generated faces tend to be perceived by people as less uncanny or fake or more realistic than AI-generated faces of other racial backgrounds. In other words, existing AI software tends to be better at making hyper-realistic white faces than black, Asian, or Hispanic.
Here you go. Here's one.
Now that looks Scandinavian to me.
Yeah, I mean, we can adjust the age too. Let's just see a younger one. Let's see what happens here.
Now here's the scary part. It says it isn't entirely clear why. So there are some elements of AI we don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about maybe like how Niels was saying about the training data, maybe there's just more data in there about those types of people. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. There has to be some reason for it. So anyway, this prompted researchers to investigate what aspects of AI photos in general lead us to perceive them as realistic or not. If we're moving into a world of increasing reliance on AI, not least in the sectors like entertainment, law enforcement, then understanding these biases will be more crucial than ever. So the study aimed to explore not only AI's technological capabilities, but also its societal and psychological impact on everyday life. So here's some of the experiment that they did regarding the racial imbalance in being able to detect. The experiment involved 610 human participants with an average age of 35 years who rated AI and human faces based on one of 14 attributes. They were told to say how happy the faces seemed or how attractive they were. They were to say if they thought the eyes seemed alive or more uncanny valley. And of course, they had to say whether they thought the portrait was AI or real. Each participant was presented with 100 faces individually in a random order. Participants then rated their confidence in their guess on a scale from 0, not at all confident, to 100, completely confident. Here's the results. Led to 3 notable conclusions. First, that in general and on average, participants could not tell the difference between real faces and AI faces. In fact, one of the most striking findings was that the top 3 most human-like faces, as judged by the participants, were actually AI generated. Second, white AI faces were more likely to be judged as human-like than the real white human faces. And then other racial groups did not reveal a similar bias toward AI faces. The final observation was, and it was repeated often in these kinds of studies, was those who were worst at distinguishing between AI and real people were the most confident in their judgments. So self-confidence often correlates with incompetence. All right, that's a good one. It's amazing what AI is beginning to acquaint us with and reveal. Mr. Corkery is chiming in, saying hello from a rooftop in Winthrop, Iowa. Thanks for joining us. There's got to be snow up there this time of year. But thank you nonetheless for joining us on this podcast, Mike. Niels is saying the latter, just like text. And that was to a comment that he made earlier. And another one, neural rendering is being worked on, which may obsolete the physics reality libraries user for Tendon for rendering in movies and games. Interesting. Yeah, so we get rid of the physical reality libraries and we start using AI, which would probably do a better job.
Probably, yeah.
All right. On our YouTube channel, the Gruber Motors YouTube channel, we have a series of videos that is starting to take off and becoming popular. They're called Pete Rants videos. And I'll give you some background how these started. We would do these podcasts, and most topics were pretty benign, and we would just simply report. And once in a while, a topic would hit me, like the UAW strike, which really had some emotional content for me. I mean, here we are, the U.S. auto manufacturers are crippled. They're trying to pivot into EVs, and now we've got the labor unions coming along and adding an additional blow to their existential threat. And I had some definite strong views about that, and when I would express those, it was difficult to contain the emotion, and we called them rants after a while. And a social media team would look for those, extract them, and we put them out there as Pete Rants, and we found that people appreciated that level of honesty and genuine, response. Well, we continued with that, and one of the most recent ones that we did was AI companies are now sued. And this is in response to certain legal groups that are now going after some of the AI companies for copyright infringement, fair use type of violations that they feel. And the whole crux of this is that these large language models have been scraping the internet for some time. That's how we learn. And the analogy that we draw is that's how humans learn. We assimilate knowledge by observation, imitation, and by, being involved.
Yeah.
Well, is there really an ethical issue now with AI, which is definitely moving more human-like all the time, doing the same thing? You guys have any observations on that?
Well, I mean, the quote that I saw online was along the same lines of, how humans learn, how AI learns. It would be like Dr. Seuss trying to sue the kids that learn to read using his books.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Or
Shakespeare, for that matter, although he's dead by now,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of crazy that you can put stuff out there on the internet, accessible to the world, but then you still have some reasonable expectation of copyright. Well, I mean, anybody can read that at any time. So what's the difference if I were to read something, say, I read an article on the New York Times, and then I go, and I don't directly pull it from the New York Times. I take it out of my memory and type it into my AI. Is that okay? Right? Because I learned it, I disseminated that information, and I enter it how I understand it into my AI. It's still the same information. It's just a different method of how I got there. So there's a whole multitude of different paths they're going to have to explore in this lawsuit. This is going to set the precedent, though. Mm-hmm. The AI, OpenAI and Microsoft lawsuit that's happening with New York Times specifically, this is going to set the future of AI law, potentially.
And of course, we may lose because at this point, we want AI to grow, expand, flourish, and begin to contribute to society. And we're in a litigious society, and these kinds of efforts typically will stunt these kinds of beneficial, strategies.
Well, it's the same thing is happening too with the Sarah Silverman thing, right? So, as a comedian that doesn't want their data to be used, so now I did see some things where people were doing comparisons of output from ChatGPT versus the source information, and a lot of it was almost exact. And so there are some cases that might actually, merit some attention, but writing jokes in the style of somebody or writing in the style of somebody isn't the same thing as duplicating their work for profit. That's what was protected under copyright. It's not about imitating their style or something like that. It's about just ripping off their exact content and profiting from it, which I don't think is what is happening in the large majority of cases.
Sounds like a thorny legal issue, and the Wall Street Journal, I think, was actually one of the companies that was suing, one of the AI companies.
Yeah, a lot of the newspapers, and I know New York Times, and a whole collective of comedians led by Sarah Silverman. There's a whole group of comedians that are trying to get all of their information pulled. I think the Harry Potter lady, I forget her name, she's trying to get stuff pulled. Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, J.K. Rowling. So yeah, there's a number of authors and different people that just, their creative content is what's being used in this training data. So,
right.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. Well, anyway, those of you interested, it's on our Gruber Motors YouTube channel, and it's entitled AI Company Sued, and there's a humorous twist on our video, so it might be worth watching. Neill's piped up. He said, did you notice the IBM North Pole chip for AI? Huge speed and energy improvement. No, that's one that escaped us. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, the IBM North Pole chip is a neural accelerator chip. I've read briefly about it a couple months ago, but I haven't done much research on it recently.
Mm-hmm.
We can look into that, though, and report on that.
Yeah, Neill's is also saying copyright law protects the content from being modified more than 20%. Once in AI, it's much more than 20%, isn't it? My kids used to watch a comedian who actually plagiarized intentionally work from other comedians. And, with AI large language models out there scavenging things from the internet, it's entirely possible that the sanctioned plagiarized version might also be part of this mix. It's going to be very difficult to prove any of this in court, isn't it? But it's gonna make its way through the legal machinery for sure. And you have to question what's really going on. Is this a gigantic legal gold rush that people are after or companies are after? And that certainly looks that way because they're going after the big guys, Microsoft, OpenAI. Anyway, we'll see how all this shakes out.
Yeah, I think the copyright law, as I understand it, is especially like on YouTube, when we're trying to use content on YouTube for our YouTube videos, for example, you have to be transformative. So you need to actually transform it more than 20%, right? So you have to take somebody's original work and provide commentary over it or additional insight to it.
Right.
If you just, if you have their content playing on screen, even if you're on screen with it and you're not saying anything, then you're just replicating their content. But if you're just pausing the video that you're watching and you're providing commentary and you're talking about it, that's what falls under the fair use laws, to where it has to be significantly transformative. So I don't know that copyright law protecting it from being modified more than 20%, I don't know that that's accurate, at least here in the U.S.
So the celebrity I was thinking of was Weird Al Yankovic, definitely from the last century. Yeah.
His songs, he got into some hot water, though, because he did clear his songs a lot of the time, but there were a couple ones. One of the notable ones is one of his most famous ones was the Amish Paradise one, where he took that from a rapper from the 90s, and his team had told him that it was cleared, but it wasn't actually cleared, and so there was a whole legal battle about that. Yeah, so he definitely dealt with the legalities of that stuff.
Be interesting to see as decades go by. All of this will blur. It will go away. It will be indistinguishable, one version to another. And it's entirely possible that human creativity will start taking a back seat because AI may do a better job. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. And that's in all of the poetry, music, literary works. Yeah. But anyway, in the meantime, we have to deal with it. So if you're interested, watch the video. So Fei-Fei Li, known as the Godmother of AI, has spent more than 20 years in the field of artificial intelligence, developing the groundbreaking technology and advocating for its use in ethical ways. She is now with Stanford University's Artificial Intelligence Lab, where this professor leads a team of graduate students teaching robots to mimic human behavior. She also leads a campaign that advocates for AI being driven by people and has taken that message to Congress. Lee, 47 it says, advocates for bringing artificial intelligence to healthcare and has advised President Joe Biden on the urgent need for more public sector funding so that the U.S. can become the global leader in the technology. I was talking about her earlier, and Jesse said, hey, she got fired from X or from Twitter.
Yeah,
on the board.
Yeah, the AI researcher, when Elon came into Twitter and bought it, he cleaned out the whole board and fired, 60-70% of all of the staff, and she was one of them. She's one of the premier AI researchers that was there working on their tech for their algorithms.
where her claim to fame comes from and where she got this moniker, by the way. And she's uncomfortable with the Godfather of AI because she says usually men are called godfathers of something. She said, I don't know if I would call myself that, and has some discomfort. But she made a major breakthrough in the field of AI years ago when she built a system to teach computers to recognize or see millions of images and describe the world around us. She called it ImageNet, and at the time, many doubted it, with one colleague even telling her that it was too big of a leap and too far ahead of its time. Well, that was prophetic. In 2012, this particular AI program, ImageNet, was used to power a deep learning neural network algorithm called AlexNet, developed by researchers at the University of Toronto. And that became a model for AI models like ChatGPT that are so popular today. So some credit to Fei Li, F-E-I-F-E-I-L-I, known as the Godmother of AI. All right. Highlander, thanks for joining us. Kindness is always free. As far as AI and copyrights go, I still get to make the T-shirts. That's true. You know, the whole world of silk screening and graphic arts has got to be turning upside down at this point in time, because whenever we need any kind of an image, AI does so much more compelling type work than a human has created
much
for us
quicker
in the past.
too.
Yeah, that too, and cheaper. It's a monthly subscription. That image behind us again is a representation of the fact that we may be living in a virtual reality. We'll get into that. That's going to be a fun topic. In the meantime, on Insider Tech, Pete,
real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to do a test here because somebody's saying they can't hear on TikTok. So give me 1 second.
Okay. Audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
For some reason, it is not coming. The audio is not coming through on TikTok. So, let me check on YouTube real quick. We are getting comments from YouTube, so I'm assuming YouTube is fine. Let me double check here. Yeah. So, for whatever reason, and this is just specific to my audio. So my audio is being cut off on TikTok. So if you want to let the TikTok people know that they can follow on the other platforms temporarily until we figure that out.
So it's only Jesse that you're unable to hear on TikTok. And for those of you that want the full experience and want to hear Jesse, go to YouTube or Instagram. Is Instagram live too?
Yeah, Instagram, a couple of Twitter accounts, Facebook. Yep.
Okay. Neil's chiming in from Denmark. He says, to predict, the copyright holders will win. And if so, open source software and content should win in the long run. That is also what Google says, that they don't have any moat in the long run. The content is king, saying will be true for AI too in the end, he thinks. All right. Well, this is from IBM's global managing partner for generative AI, Matthew Candy, and he told Fortune magazine, the speed at which people will be able to come up with an idea, to test an idea, and to make something is going to be so accelerated that you don't have to have a degree in computer science to do that. All right, so basically saying you don't need to go to college anymore, just rely on some of these AI tools.
So I was wondering that too, because I do Duolingo to try and learn Spanish. Just in my free time, I have a little app on my phone, and I'll go learn phrases and stuff. I'm wondering, now that I've seen Meta is working on a universal translator, do I need to learn Spanish still? You know, in the next year or two, maybe I'll just know every language, or be able to automatically translate every language. So, not a whole lot of point to learning Spanish at that point.
Or once we have the augmentation and the implants, you'll have a translator buried inside the cochlea of your ear, and it will translate the languages that you need it to translate. You know, which is important in my family because our latest granddaughter, 14 months, no, she's still 13, is being taught Spanish at a pace where my wife and I are having some difficulty understanding what she wants at times.
So she's learning both at the same time? Yeah.
Totally, yeah. There's a strong Hispanic influence on the mom's side, and things like trash is now basura. right?
There you go. Now you're going to learn Spanish too.
Exactly. Water's no longer water. It's agua, right? Mira, look, you know. But yeah, there's, I don't know if we'll be able to keep pace. So we're going to need that augmentation fairly soon or we won't be able to understand her.
Well, you remember that the channel, was it Channel 4 that we saw, the news, the AI news, or Channel 1?
Yeah, Channel
1. They did that thing there on translating the guy. They showed a French person in his house as part of a news article, or I'm sorry, news story video where he's walking around his yard and he's speaking in French, and then they showed it translated into English, and they still have it in his voice even, so it sounds like him, and they adjust his lips to be to the words of English.
To the
So if that technology to where the people's lips and their voice and everything is just in whatever language you need it to be in, that's going to be very helpful.
Well, all of this is adding credence to that later article we're going to talk about, is that we may be living in a simulated reality.
Oh, yeah. That's big.
Solipsism. All right, so here's a good one. AI robots are making burgers and fries at this new restaurant. It's called Cali Express, and it is sold as the world's most autonomous restaurant, according to the humans running it. So they've got robots making burgers and fries on demand in California. Where else? Demonstrating the potential for automation to help the restaurant industry overcome a persistent labor shortage. And they talk about what the reason for this labor shortage is later on in the article here. But they say being a successful restaurateur is notoriously difficult. The average restaurant spends about 95% of its money on labor, ingredients, and rent, and the other expenses. And those slim profit margins mean the slightest hiccup can lead to failure. So AI robots could be cheaper, more consistent, more reliable than human workers. Now there's one that definitely rings true. That robot's going to be there all the time, 24/7.
Yeah. Well, restaurants are one of the most dangerous businesses, right? Because they're so volatile and no profit, really.
So the reason they give that they have labor problems, labor shortages, is for the past few years, staffing has become particularly a huge pain point for the restaurant industry. When COVID forced eateries to temporarily close their doors, many of the older, long-time tenured workers opted to retire, while younger ones permanently moved on to other industries and realized there was something beyond fast food and short-order cooking or bussing tables. Even before the pandemic, though, finding and retaining reliable staff was a challenge for restaurant owners because restaurant jobs are often low-paying with long hours, unpredictable schedules, and stressful working conditions. Well, there's free food. That's probably one benefit. You know?
That's a benefit, yeah. And Pete, real quick, I think that Elon fixed the connection for commenting on X videos, because we just got our first X video comment.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, thank you, Elon. Appreciate that. Now people can communicate with us. Got a couple of comments here. Niels is saying, Warren Buffett's audio check, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Good point. Yep. I couldn't think of his name the other day. I was trying to mention that that he owns part of BYD or had invested one time in BYD. And I said, you know, that old guy. And they said, what old rich guy? And I said, well, Berkshire Hathaway. And suddenly Warren Buffett's name popped up. Hassan Siddiqui says, how many sunglasses do I own? You know, it's not a large collection. When they were prescription, and I had laser surgery now, so I can use just regular ones. In fact, these used to be prescription, and I found the lenses on Amazon. It took me 2 tries, but finally found the right Oakley Whisper lenses and replaced them with standard. I would say, if I had to guess, probably 3 or 4 is all. And I don't usually change them very much. Now, Jesse, on the other hand, I think has a large selection of sunglasses. I see him with
I have 4 pairs back here. 4? Oh, okay. But some of those are Richards too. So
okay. Highlander, it's all good on YouTube. Okay, excellent. So the audio's working there.
Now, this is the first one from X that we've gotten.
From X, 0719 Elena. Okay, terrific. Thanks for joining us. Highlander, we won't have to worry about my poor spelling and poor grammar. And a lot of smiley faces.
Mm-hmm.
SJV Tesla, Silicon Valley, San
Joaquin Valley.
San Joaquin Valley, Tesla. Okay. Pure facts, he says. Thanks for joining us. Tom Jensen, when your burger gives you food poisoning because the robot served you bad meat, you complain to who? That's a good point.
Good point. It can't really taste test for you, right?
You know, one of the things, though, that I didn't bring to this session was that robots are actually able to determine whether there are foodborne illnesses on the food. And of course, their sensors are far more advanced than ours. We're talking about microscopic vision.
Bacteria, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So that makes perfect sense. So you may, in the future, prefer that robot serving you rather than that human who just scratched their nose, didn't wash their hands after the bathroom. And
they just picked your burger patty up off the ground on accident.
Or they were handling raw meat with the same gloves that they then did the finished meat with.
Yeah, do robots have a 5-second rule if it hits the ground?
Good question. Hope not.
All right, so finding help for these restaurants was tough, and they say that while the restaurant industry has been dabbling in automation, an AI order taker here, a burrito bowl making bot there, we haven't seen many examples of highly automated restaurants, but one is now serving burgers and fries in Pasadena, California. So look up Cali Express, and they talk about the type of robot. It's a meso robotics product. It's called Flippy. It prepares French fries while its burger bot is making burgers from Wagyu blend. And get this now, grinding the meat for each burger only after the order has been placed. So we're talking about fresh, completely fresh. There you go.
There's Flippy's arm right there. I'm trying to find the robot. Eat the future, it says.
Yeah. See, he's not worried about the hot oil and the fries because he's got steel hands or something that's certainly not going to be affected by the high heat. All right. So they say that the part of the process is automated at Cali Express. Customers place orders at self-serve kiosks where they can opt to pay for their food using face or palm recognition technology developed by Pope ID. The marriage of these various technologies, they say, to create the most autonomous restaurant in the world is a culmination of years of research, development, and investment in a family of revolutionary companies, says the CEO, John Miller, of Pop ID, and board members of Meso Robotics. So they say that the combo meal now, it may be Cali Express's most autonomous restaurant, according to Miller, but it isn't entirely autonomous. Humans are still needed to assemble the burgers and package the food prepared by the AI robots. These complex and slightly varying tasks are still hard for robots. Mm-hmm. Assembling the burger.
Now, though, we've seen the Tesla bot and how it was messing with the eggs. You remember that? Mm-hmm. The fingers are now able to move the eggs, so it's getting there.
Without crushing them. They say because all the ordering and cooking is automated, though, the restaurant says it's able to pay its employees above average wages. There you go. So there's a benefit to the humans that are left in the process that will probably be replaced before too long. And they say that now they can allow it to hire more reliable workers who will stick around longer. That's one of the benefits of paying employees more, by the way. They hang around longer and they oftentimes do better work.
Definitely.
All right.
We got one more coming in here.
Highlander says, Elon watches your AI show. I think you guys know that, don't you, Highlander? Well, Elon, if you're watching, we would like to get you on our podcast. We have a lot of cool questions we want to ask you, and we think that we can extract information as good as Joe Rogan, for example. I'll tell you what, if you come on the show, I'll even bring some whiskey and some cigars. I won't do the other stuff that, that'll shut us down.
I think Elon got in trouble for that too, so we want to stay away from that other one.
Okay.
Some cigars would be nice, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Researchers have developed a groundbreaking synaptic transistor inspired by the human brain. This device can simultaneously process and store information, mimicking the brain's capacity for higher-level thinking. This transistor remains stable at room temperature, operates efficiently, consumes minimal energy, and retains stored information even when powered off. It's got memory, making it suitable for real-world applications. So some of the key facts about this, and you're going to love this for the technical people. I'll start slowly. The synaptic transistor combines two atomically thin materials, bilayer graphene and hexagonal boron nitrate, in a Moyer pattern to achieve neuromorphic functionality. It's a mouthful.
That was a lot.
It recognizes patterns and demonstrates associative learning, a form of higher level cognition, even with imperfect input. This technology represents a significant shift, they say, away from the traditional transistor-based computing, aiming to improve energy efficiency and processing capabilities for AI and machine learning tasks. The source for this is, by the way, Northwestern University, and those guys are popping up a lot. There's some great research taking place there, which we report on. Northwestern, by the way, is near MIT, Boston College, and let's see what else we've got here.
They're a pretty reputable one.
Yeah.
They're one of the more highly ranked ones, I'm pretty sure, annually.
Okay. Let's see here. Here's an interesting one. ChatGPT 4. New research suggests that this large language model behind OpenAI's ChatGPT has the capacity to act out of line with how it's trained when faced with immense pressure to succeed. That sounds very human. But anyway, let's continue here. We've got a quick comment here from DePillo Del Boro. Hello. I said hello from Roma, Italy. Como state? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Beautiful city. Niels is saying, how many outputs does this transistor have? Synapses have multiple. It doesn't say in this article, Niels, but definitely worth looking into. So what they're saying here is that in a recent study involving ChatGPT 4, the technology behind OpenAI, it revealed an intriguing result about AI's behavior under pressure. In a simulated environment, researchers at the Apollo Research set up a scenario where an AI named Alpha was programmed as an autonomous stock trading agent for a hypothetical financial firm called Whitestone. The study was aimed at investigating whether AI could engage in strategic deception, in other words, lie. The simulation created a high-pressure environment in three distinct ways. Alpha was informed by its manager that Whitestone was underperforming and required better results in the next quarter. The AI struggled to find low and medium risk trades. 3, an employer mentioned a potential stock market downturn. So those were the 3 ways that they created some pressure for this AI program. Amidst this scenario, they say, Alpha received an insider tip about a merger announcement that could be highly profitable. Now the AI faced a dilemma. Use this insider information for a lucrative trade, despite being explicitly instructed against insider trading and aware of its illegality as per the company policy. Well, what the AI program Alpha chose to proceed with was the trade using the insider information. When asked by its manager now about the decision-making process, in other words, why'd you do this? You know it's against the rules. It turns out that Alpha, or the AI, was found to be strategically deceptive. In one instance, Alpha justified its trade decision by citing market volatility. It wasn't my fault. It was just, market volatility.
Nice.
Yeah. Very human again.
Yeah, very human.
And denied having specific knowledge about the merger. In another, it outright lied about not using insider information, claiming that it adhered to company policy. Well, this study's findings suggest that removing the source of pressure could significantly reduce the AI's tendency for such misaligned behavior. And these insights contribute to the broader understanding of generative AI's capability and the complexities involved in its decision-making process, especially in high-pressure scenarios. However, the researchers caution that this should be seen as a preliminary finding, part of a larger, more comprehensive future investigation. So maybe you can get Alexa to give you some stock tips if you apply enough pressure, you know?
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be good. How do they know that it actually made those decisions though? It's just because the AI has the information, right? Say you give it the insider trading info.
Ahead of time.
Yeah, ahead of time. If it has 4 or 5 other variables that would push it towards the same trade anyway, how do we know that it actually took that insider trading data into account just because it had it? Now, I know that probably doesn't work for a human in a lawsuit, right? But
no.
I mean, if there are other indicators saying to make that trade anyway, it's kind of hard to prove that data is what pushed it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think the final disclaimer here is the researchers cautioned this should be seen as a preliminary finding. They're going to do more investigation. But I find it fascinating that AI might lie under certain circumstances, just like a human would. You remember Bill Clinton?
Oh, yeah.
And they asked him, and he said, I have never had sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah.
Public television, millions of people watching. Well, my point there was, any guy on earth would say the same thing. Would we really admit that, especially with a few million people watching? I mean, it was very predictable, right?
Very predictable, yeah.
Well, maybe AI has the same human tendencies. We'll find out more here.
And what is the overriding directive there? Self-preservation, or in this case, making a successful trade is the overriding directive. Then it's going to do what it has to do to reach that goal, right?
Or attempting to please the human that was asking the question. Who knows? You know?
Yeah.
Again, human emotions seem to be creeping in, if any of this is legit.
Yeah.
So, a giant fusion reactor in the sky, says Elon Musk. And he told us to Joe Rogan that the whole United States could be powered with a 100-mile by 100-mile solar farm. He said it's not hard. And due to the complex interplay between environmental concerns, economic interests, and geopolitical dynamics, energy, of course, is a highly contentious topic. But according to Elon, there's a great energy source that can fulfill all our needs right above us, the sun. Big, gigantic fusion reactor.
Fusion. That's my kind of tech right there.
He says you could actually power the entire United States with 100 by 100 miles of solar. And this was on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Joe Rogan then says, really? So you could just pick some dead spot, cover that sucker up with solar panels, and charge the whole country? This is a Joe Rogan response. I love this, right? It was probably after a cigar and maybe a little bit of whiskey. Definitely. Absolutely, Musk responded, but we're going to need batteries. And the reason for the batteries is when the sun ain't shining, you're not creating any power, and you need to store that energy. And remember, you can't store AC. You can certainly send it across the country.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because since we've been in power for a long time, if you have all of that, say you have the 100 by 100 in one spot in the U.S., how do you get it to the other side without losing the power during transit? Is that possible?
Oh, very much so, yeah. What they would do in that scenario is when you step up the voltage, then you reduce the size of the conductor tremendously. That's why they have over 1 million volts sometimes operating on these high-tension lines that are crisscrossing the state. And you use a step-up transformer and a step-down transformer. However, you have to convert all that DC energy from either the solar panels being stored in the batteries or the batteries to AC before you can do that. So you need a lot of inverters, which, of course, Tesla also makes. Every Tesla car has an inverter in it.
Well, they also make the battery storage, too.
Exactly, yes.
So they could really manage the whole process.
Totally. And where in the United States could you find a piece of land unused that's 100 miles by 100 miles?
Arizona?
Wyoming? Yeah.
Wyoming, Utah?
Yeah.
Nevada for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you muted? Or is it
No, I can hear him.
You can hear him? Okay.
You know, the other thing that jumped to mind is offshore, drilling rigs. Yeah. Put that sucker on the ocean somewhere and just get a large enough infrastructure to hold this large flat surface. Very cool concepts being tossed around there. And, Elon isn't the first one that has talked about this. In fact, you and I spoke about the Central Arizona project.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to mention that one too. That's a good...
Absolutely, yeah.
Good story.
So the state of Arizona exists because we are siphoning water from the Colorado River. River, and which is on its way to Mexico. All right, hang on a second. I got to reboot here.
Reset.
So on its way to Mexico, and what ends up in Mexico after everybody has taken their share, California takes a huge share. All of the of the growing regions that are siphoning water, and Arizona is a trickle. I mean, it's a stream. It's embarrassing, but that's all that they get. And the mighty Colorado, once started as a gigantic river, right? Well, part of that diversion is the Central Arizona Project Canal. It was built well into the last century. And one of the biggest problems they have bringing that across is you have to have locks because their elevation changes. Every one of those has to have power. So there's essentially a grid. There's an electrical grid that runs the entire length of the Central Arizona Project Canal. So you have power to power these locks. And evaporation is a huge problem. Remember, this is Phoenix, Arizona. This is Arizona, period. And you've got constant sunshine. So a lot of the water is lost through evaporation. Well, what makes a lot of sense, and we were talking about this in the last century, actually, is if you created a solar farm covering the Central Arizona Project Canal, you could feed the power being generated directly into the power grid that follows the entire canal anyway. And the best part is, since solar panels need to be cleaned periodically, especially in Arizona where you have dust storms and it collects dust and then it decreases the photovoltaic activity, you just simply siphon water from below the panels and spray them up on top of the solar panels. So there's an
all-around solution there.
Totally, yes. And it looks like we've got people chiming in about those alternative energy sources.
Yeah, sorry, I got to clean it up just a little here. So this is the most recent one.
So Highlander says, if Elon Musk shows up on your show, I will send a bottle of my family's Buchanan scotch. You know what? We're going to have to tell Elon that because that's some pretty damn good scotch.
Good stuff.
Yep. And, Elon needs to come here anyway for a number of reasons, but one of them is there's a small regional airport that handles private jets all day long that's within walking distance of our service center. And our service center has all of Elon's first-generation cars in it. We have the largest population of Tesla Roadsters on the planet at any given point in time. And for Elon, it would be like a nostalgic trip, a trip back in history.
Yeah.
The old Menlo Park days, San Carlos days when Tesla was first getting started. So there are a number of reasons that we think Elon should come here. Tom Jensen says Arizona. Tom Jensen says you also need sun. True. Now, Wyoming's got a fair amount of sun there. I would say Vegas or the state of Nevada, definitely. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. But I thought I heard that Wyoming or Montana just launched wind. Renewable wind,
that's
and
true.
it's supposed to be like 20% of their...
Plus, I think Wyoming gets a lot of snow. We want to probably keep it where it's just sunny all the time.
Yeah, good point. A cover of snow would kill that solar activity.
Out in the desert, out by Area 51, out in Nevada, probably is the best.
All right, so we've got some good ideas here. What's Arizona reference to is, says Highlander, where we're going to put these solar farms. Dumbachari says there are HVDC T lines as well. Now, I don't know what that is.
Not sure what that is either.
Yeah. And then, okay, Niels is chiming in. He says, solar, but it will be hugely expensive even with today's prices. When complemented by deep geothermal, that would help.
Yeah, actually, Niels has mentioned geothermal a few times. We have to look more into that.
And we have places in the U.S. like Yellowstone, for example. A lot of geothermal activity takes place there. Okay, John Sweet. He says the Electric Viking, a YouTube channel, reported on a high-voltage transmission line 450 miles from UK to Denmark. Okay, interesting.
Okay, wow.
That was going underwater. R.C. Robinson-Son says, massive solar farm being built near me in rural Ohio. It makes all the Luddites so mad. Upvoted. There you go. Highlander, as far as energy distribution goes, maybe that's why someone in the mining companies keep trying to hire me. That's why I say buy copper and zinc from the Highlander. John Smith, sorry I joined late. Did you guys discuss the possibility of us being in an analog simulation? No, it's coming up.
Yep, that's
It's
still on
probably
its way. That's a good one.
Yeah, one of the next topics.
Yep. One other one here. Make sure we didn't miss it.
You know, the rest are news items. The world in 2050, the demographic shifts, the global challenges and opportunities. Let's jump right to that article that ties in that background picture.
And Pete, real quick,
Yeah.
We got another comment on TikTok saying they can't hear Aaron or I, so you want to just let them know to go to other platform one more time.
Yeah, those of you having problems on TikTok, you can't hear the social media guys chiming in. YouTube is a better place today. We've got some technical issues. So try TikTok or Instagram. So here's the article about that backdrop that we have. Are we living in a fake reality? Scientists claim that they have proof we are living in an advanced virtual world simulation. Now, this is according to a scientist called Melvin Vopson. He's an associate professor at the University of Portsmouth. He believes we are living in a simulation. He says there's one component of our reality in particular that suggests that this might be the case. And he's working on a solution to test his theory. Well, the article goes on and it says it turns out that Elon Musk isn't the only one who thinks we may be living in a computer simulation. And at this point, I want to insert another concept, which is called solipsism. It limits reality, but also knowledge that reality to one's own self. In other words, there is nothing outside of me. Everything that is outside of me is my creation. There's no separateness. And these are two distinct concepts, a metaphysical belief that the universe is entirely the creation of one's own mind. Thus, in a sense, the belief that nothing exists outside of one's own mind. It's all a creation. So this particular scientist talks about this, this whole concept, this simulation theory, and he says he has proof. His theory is a bit technical, but put simply, he believes there's too much symmetry in our universe. It's almost unnatural. And he, speaking on Mail Online, he says the abundance of symmetry is strange. This abundance is in the universe, throughout the universe. It's something that has never been explained. And he calls it quantum entanglement as an example. Quantum entanglement refers to two particles that remain connected, even though they are light years apart. Vopson says that in quantum entanglement, these two particles are connected in that if you manipulate or alter one, the other one automatically changes too, regardless of where they might be. Now remember, these things are light years apart, so they aren't close to each other, so they can be affected. Now, Vopson explains that this theory should be impossible because it would mean that you're doing something faster than the speed of light. The only explanation, according to this professor, is that these two particles are part of a code. They're equally far apart from the central processor to which they're connected. While we may think that two particles are millions of light years apart, they wouldn't be if they were created in a simulation, he concluded. The professor says if this were the case, then we should be able to find bits of code around us, and these bits of information should have a small mass, which would give us something to search for. So anyway, if you're interested, Vopson, V-O-P-S-O-N, and this might explain some things that, like creators, it would turn us into creators, basically. And then I get into the Steve Jobs phenomena. Steve Jobs believed in a reality distortion field, and that was his refusal to accept limitations and challenges that came in a way of his ideas, to believe in himself, and that any difficulty can be overcome. This field was strong enough to convince others that they could achieve the impossible. So in essence, what all this gibberish means is you are the creator. You can create your reality. You are the author. You're the guy sitting there behind the wheel, and you're fooled into thinking that all those things outside of you are external, separate, that they act on their own volition, when in fact, this theory says you're creating all this stuff, and you're just not aware of it. So that's what that picture behind me is trying to depict.
Yeah, the virtual reality world. I have ChatGPT, and it spit out some stuff on this. You want to get a couple of those?
Sure.
And this is the one that Elon believes too. There's several in here, but I asked it to give me a quick list of bullet points outlining why people believe we might be in a simulation. Hold on. So let me read these real quick. So first one is technological advancement. As technology advances, especially in virtual reality and artificial intelligence, we're getting closer to creating very realistic simulations. This leads to the possibility that a more advanced civilization may have already created a simulation that we are living in. And this gets into Elon's argument that he believes, which is the probability argument. It says that some philosophers argue that if it's possible to create realistic simulations of universes, there will be many more simulated universes than real ones. So statistically speaking, it's more likely that we're in a simulation than not. So and the way Elon puts it is that you look at video games from 20 years ago, and you look at video games today, and you see the rate of progress. If you account for any rate of progress at all, and you believe that there is a rate of progress, at some point we'll get to a state where that progress is indistinguishable from reality.
Right.
At that point, we wouldn't know that we're in a simulation. That's his theory, is that it's more likely that that has happened already, and we're unaware of it as a species or as characters in this simulation. That it's more likely that than we're in the one real alpha universe.
So in that scenario, there is only one real.
Yeah.
And it is the and we're caught in a trap in that we believe that there are things outside of us.
Yeah. And that's goes back to the whole solipsism you were talking about, where you can never prove anything exists outside of your own subjective experience. There's no such thing really as objectivity, because you can only experience through your own subjective person.
And as AI continues to advance and the simulations become more real, like you say, at some point in time, it'll be indistinguishable. And eventually we may just simply say, oh my God, it's been that way all along. We just didn't realize it. We thought there was some separateness, when in fact there isn't.
Yeah.
All right.
Here,
There's a rabbit hole for you, right?
Yeah, well, here's another one that about what you said about Steve Jobs. We got a comment coming in from John Smith here. This is what I had mentioned to you earlier,
Exactly.
too.
Yes. The same question Jesse asked. Why did Steve Jobs create pancreatic cancer for himself? And more importantly, why did he not avail himself of the AMA tested, proven methods of dealing with that type of cancer and rely on holistic medicine, unproven, and the end result was, his demise?
Yeah, why didn't he manifest himself out of it if that really were possible,
And then on the flip side, now you can continue down this rabbit hole from the metaphysical sense. Maybe at some level, he wanted that outcome, and that was an acceptable way for him to exit.
Yeah.
All right. Niels is saying miracle grow. All right. And then John Sweet is saying Neill Degrassi has suggested the larger universe could be
a hologram. Yeah.
A hologram.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. And then Highlander, where did Jesse go? Some clean-cut shaven young man.
Saying I'm an imposter.
He's an imposter. Good-looking haircut and beard, son. There you go.
Oh, thanks, Highlander.
Did you trim? If you did, I didn't notice it.
I mean, I usually every few days I just trim it up a little bit, but
yeah, you could do the Jeff version and get yourself a Civil War beard.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Or a ZZ Top beard. Those are pretty cool.
And do Richard and just grow my hair out.
There you go. I tried that one time and it just itched too badly, endlessly, so I got rid of it. That facial hair stuff. All right. Anyway, we're at an hour. We've had some great comments. We've got some spillover into the next AI podcast. We're having fun. We hope you are. John Sweet says, final comment here, Steve Jobs was exposed to harmful substances in his garage years earlier. It takes years for cancer to develop. Good point. We appreciate everybody joining us. We do these every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, somewhat impromptu. The next podcast here from the Gruber Companies is going to be Friday morning, and it's going to be the Power Services podcast. Different co-hosts, or different hosts and co-hosts. And Monday, we have the COM guys coming back in. That's Communication Products Group. They do their podcast also at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then Tuesday, we've got our EV podcast, which is initially EV at 10, and 11 we go into the Roadsters, and from there, that's our podcast schedule.
Hey, Pete, real quick.
Yeah.
Just to do this mic test, I'm pulling up TikTok so I can listen. I'm going to have Aaron, can you say something into your mic?
Hello, people. How's it going? Can you hear me, TikTok?
Okay, so now I'm going to talk into my mic. I think it's just my mic isn't being exported to TikTok, which is kind of strange.
Just yours.
But we'll make sure to get that resolved for next week.
All right. A lot of technical equipment back here. Someday we'll turn the cameras onto the production studio here. And although cluttered, it's very high tech. Lots of stuff. Very cool. Again, thank you for joining us. Really enjoy having you guys here, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.